Welcome to the 2015 UT Social Media Week at the University of Tennessee, brought to you by the College of Communication and Information and hosted by the School of Advertising and Public Relations at UT. This year's theme, The Power of Social Media, will provide our students, faculty, and the Knoxville community with a great opportunity to gain leading-edge knowledge about the uses and impacts of social media. The 2015 UT Social Media Week at the University of Tennessee is brought to you by the following sponsors: WATE, 6 on your side; Coca-Cola Bottling Company Consolidated, Coca-Cola, Open Happiness, and Dead End Barbecue. The search is over.
Let me get just a kind of quick feel for the room. I know some faces in here, some friends and colleagues. Of the students that are in the room, general age range, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior? Juniors and seniors mainly? All right, good. So that kind of gives me an idea of the historical knowledge you have of a few things I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to get started today, and I'm going to talk for a little bit about the university's brand, as I will say in this opening slide, as well as kind of the process we've been through over the last 3 years here at the university, and then give you some historical background into the kind of the start of social media at the university. And then I'm going to turn things over to Rebecca to get into some details about some of the challenges and examples of managing social media efforts on campus and how we use our brand to provide power to our social media voice. So I'm going to start off by talking about the B word. What do you think I mean by the B word? Branding, brand, or branding. And the reason I say the B word is because we have what we call the branding team in our office. And marketing in higher education is a fairly new concept. It's been around for the last decade or so, depending on what school you were with. But more than a decade ago, schools didn't really market themselves in the way that they do today. So the idea of branding an institution is a fairly new concept to the world of higher ed. And to certain members of our campus community, especially faculty members and those who hold the ideals of what it means to be on an institution of higher learning, this is a dirty word. Our branding team realized the depth of the dirtiness of this word pretty quickly after launching the Big Orange, Big Ideas campaign in 2012. I'm going to go through a little bit of kind of the background of that and then talk about how we kind of dealt with that a little bit, but not go into the weeds because you want to hear about social media. So just to give you kind of the quick overview of how we've talked about branding on this campus for the last several years is really as simple as this. We as an institution, or McDonald's as a restaurant, or Dillard's as a department store, all have an idea of how we want to be seen by others. So we at the University of Tennessee, we know how we want to be seen. The reality of that, when paired with how others see you, often intersects, as it does in the middle, and often doesn't intersect. And so the big challenge that we face in branding the university is to find not just that middle ground, but to pay attention to this whole piece. Essentially, our brand exists in that whole space. So what we're looking at is not just this part on the left, which is really easy, we can control that. And not just ignoring the stuff on the right, because it's really difficult, because sometimes you can't control it. But it's finding the happy medium and learning how to kind of live within this entire world. First time we gave this presentation, somebody pointed something out. Does this look familiar to anyone, this symbol that you see here?
Venn diagram?
It's a Venn diagram, yes.
Two big oranges.
Yeah, two big oranges. It would be a little different if this one was yellow, perhaps. MasterCard, yes, exactly. What was really interesting is we spent a lot of time as we were talking to the campus community in advance of our branding campaign launch to say, people would say, your brand, it's just your logo. This is your logo. And we would say, no, it's way more than our logo. Our logo is just one piece of who we are. The brand is about more than that. It's about all this stuff, how we want to be seen and how people see us, and then this whole rigmarole. And then the first thing we hear almost is, oh, MasterCard, oh, the logo. Because you realize that this is a shortcut for MasterCard is to suggest who their brand is. So I will say that as a segue to say this is not our brand. This is a very important element of what we call our brand identity, but this is not our brand. So hopefully you can kind of see a little bit of the complications we have with the B word, and one of the challenges that we face and continue to face as we talk about this. So we prefer the R word. Anyone know what the R word might be? Reputation. Is that what you said? Yes. Reputation. So it's really as simple as that. Our brand is our reputation. That's how we're seen, how we want to be seen. And this is where we start to tie very closely, as you can see, to like strategic plan of the university. We want the efforts that we have from a marketing and communications office to reflect the strategic direction of the university. So we use brand as a verb, or actually, no, an adjective, sorry, not a noun. So we talk about our brand strategy or our brand identity or a branding campaign. But typically in kind of our day-to-day work with the campus community, don't talk about our brand in a noun. We talk about it in an adjective. However, through this presentation, because I've given you all this context, and you know what I mean when I say brand, for easy purposes, we will continue to use that term, especially since it's the name of our talk as well, and that's how people know it. So I mentioned 2012. We launched the branding campaign, otherwise known as Big Orange, Big Ideas, which was the tagline that kind of what we called it as the Big Orange, Big Ideas branding campaign, or the branding campaign with the tagline. And I will go into a little more detail about that, but I want to rewind actually 3 years even before that launch and talk a little bit about finding our voice. And this is where we start talking social media. In 2009, May or June of 2009, the university created its Facebook account. This was in the days when Facebook was fairly new as something more than just a college intranet. So it was a thing that existed on college campuses, so students on campus could communicate with one another. And it started to be used by brands and by institutions such as ours as a communication tool. So this is 3 years, a little less than 3 years prior to the launch of the branding campaign, what could be presently called our brand. And I want you to notice something interesting as I take you through a few slides. So if you can read, slow and steady, moving 80 tons of dolomite doesn't happen fast. This idea of who we are, our voice, our tone, our personality, even almost 3 years in advance of launching the branding campaign, which, as I'll show in a little bit, defined a lot of that for us, was already there. Some of this is embedded in the personalities of those who were managing the account, Rebecca at the time being one of them. But a lot of that personality is embedded because folks like Rebecca were on this campus. We knew natively that who we are should come through in what we do. It's a basic kind of communications tenet. So even early, I mean, even a month or two into our launch of our Facebook page, at the time, what, Rebecca, a couple thousand, few thousand followers?
Yeah, somewhere around 10,000 followers probably.
You start to see that personality is already in existence. Same thing here. Beep, beep, beep. It's as simple as that. It's a shortcut kind of formal or informal kind of familiar way to talk about things. That voice is already there. And then home sweet home. I mean, the words to Rocky Top. The Rock is now in its new location on Rocky Top. The idea of the Rock as this very kind of quintessential landmark on campus, this kind of representation of a lot of who we are, what people know about us, what the campus community knows, what our alumni are familiar with, is already here in the voice of our social media accounts, just as part of kind of our natural way of being at the time. Now, we didn't really have it all figured out because nobody did at the time, so we said things like, this gallery holds images of the Rock's moved to its new home. We would not say that today, but you can kind of start to see, even in these early days, the voices there a little bit, this still kind of figuring out the the medium is happening as well. This is right around the time that Twitter was known but hadn't really taken off yet, and it was our only social media activity at the time. So then fast forward another month later, this happened over the summer, students are coming back. The rock should not look this clean, come out today. This kind of idea of like, this is the place, celebrate its new home, this kind of like idea of tradition, that bit of voice of who we are and this kind of landmark that we have is here. In this Facebook post, you kind of notice we're kind of live tweeted, the event was actually live tweeting, slow and steady. This is what we would do on Twitter nowadays, kind of giving these updates, but at the time using Facebook because that was the medium we had. And by this time, we had grown from 10,000.
50,000 by this point. I mean, just in the span of, this was about a month later.
Yeah.
And one of the, I don't know if you guys can hear me, one of the things that really helped us grow so much in that time span was, for all intents and purposes, this live tweeting, Facebooking of this event, because the rock is so important to our community. The local media was actually sending their viewers to our Facebook page. Because we were covering it so well. Their Facebook page was linking to our Facebook page. They were telling people on air to go check out our Facebook page. It was huge for us. We couldn't get that kind of publicity from our 10,000 followers on Facebook. And that was a big get for us. We were so excited.
So you can see in the early days, like finding that voice pretty immediately and growing that following happened fairly rapidly and really took off from there. But I wanted to give you that kind of backdrop of where we began, and then Rebecca will give you a landscape of where we are now. So again, this is about 2 years. About 2 years after that, we started talking about the branding campaign for campus. And I think what I hope that you see, and we kind of talked about with the Facebook posts, before we had a brand, we had a brand. So that was one of the hardest things for us to communicate as we were working on the branding campaign, is we are not creating a brand for the university. It's been referred to a couple times about the rebranding with the new logo and the rebranding of campus. None of this was rebranding at all. What we were doing, what our office was doing with the help of the campus community and the help through research of our alumni and students and even the general public, was we were articulating our brand. We were putting words around something that already existed. And our real challenge was to find what that thing is, find out what that is that we want to be known for, find out what those things are that we are known for, and putting some words around it. So in February of 2012, we launched the branding campaign. Again, you can see us feeling through this. What did I just say before? We don't talk about our brand as a brand. Well, we did, and this is part of the backlash that we received on campus, and we have since softened our language. But what you see up here is what we call our brand platform. This lays out in somewhat jargony terms what the University of Tennessee, Knoxville is. Our mission, our brand position, our personality, the tireless volunteer ready to stand up for what's right, our pledge, together we are unstoppable, the benefit to our audience, these sorts of things that a lot of companies, a lot of businesses, a lot of brands do, we wanted to do to establish, put some words around and kind of solidify something that we all knew, we just hadn't yet set in stone. Part of the branding campaign launch included messaging, core message around the Big Orange, Big Ideas tagline, as well as messages tied to what we call leadership, discovery, legacy, and experience. And all of these are mapped to different areas of the university's strategic plan, and they're all ways of us, again, articulating who we are, because it's important for us on this campus community, 10,000 and some employees, all of which communicate in some way from the university or about the university, to be on the same page. This includes visual identity elements, our color palette. And in addition to these primary colors, there are also a whole host of secondary colors, as well as lingo, words to use when talking about things. Again, we're just trying to put some words around who we are and what we do. And then even as kind of direct in this instance of what is branding? This is new to a campus community. This is new to people on this institution. So what is it and what do we mean by it? And again, the R word there at the top. So after the campaign launch, we've been living our brand for the last 3 years plus. And we are striving for Zen, by which we call internal brand alignment. So in advance of 2012, there was no consistency of message, consistency of color, consistency of anything across campus. When there were social media accounts, whether they were the primary account or an account at a college or an account with alumni or whatever, they were saying whatever they said at the time that they said it. And though the colleagues knew one another, there was none of these branding elements to kind of tie everything together. We are still, 3 years plus later, working on the Zen of internal brand alignment. And with our campus community and communicators across campus are getting closer and closer to that every day. Just a couple quick examples to show when someone asks me, how do you sum up our brand in one word? That word, if you saw on the platform, is energy. We're energetic, we're forward-thinking, we're big, we're bold, we're colorful. That's kind of, if you take the visual representation of our brand, that's what we are. So hopefully you'll see that through these pieces. Again, drawing on tradition as well is important. A screen grab from a website to kind of pull that energy and that color, that photographic style in. This is a recent piece from Make Orange Green about sustainability. Again, these important tenets, but drawing upon these branding elements that our office has helped establish. And then even something as bold and as colorful and energetic on a topic that's less so can live our brand. This is a way that we can execute kind of who we are in a space that we don't normally talk about or normally is uncomfortable to talk about, where we can get that personality of the university even in something as bold as a campaign like this. But perhaps most important is how we live our brand on social media. The nature of social media, the immediacy of it, the interpersonality of it, that didn't come out right, the interpersonal nature of it, the fact that it's a one-on-one engagement, that makes social media essential to us communicating who we are. We can do that on a daily basis. We can do it on an hour-by-hour basis or a minute-by-minute basis by talking directly to folks like yourself, to our alumni, to fans who come for a football game, to prospective students or their parents who are thinking about coming to the University of Tennessee. All of that is just kind of, social media is rife with those opportunities. So again, energy, excitement. We're always trying to get that kind of, that vibe, that brand of the university through in our social media engagement. And everything from photographs of excited graduates to Happy Groundhog Day messages, where you see some of the visual elements that have been established as part of the brand identity interwoven there.
It doesn't get better than that.
Yes, that's right, that's right. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca to go in a little more detail about our social media activities.
Can you guys hear me better? Yeah, I got like 3 texts telling me to move the mic closer. Sorry for checking. So, I'm not pushing the button. So these are some of the places where we're living our brand right now. I mean, they're the places where you would expect to find us. And a little bit later, we'll talk about what we're doing to sort of identify some other places where we might hope to be in the future. And we've got some information up there on some of the different audiences in some of these places and how we're using these platforms in different ways. Facebook, we're really seeing more engagement with alumni and your parents than we are necessarily with you all and prospective students. And I'm sure you all as students know, because your parents are using Facebook more and your grandparents are using Facebook. And I believe that you all are there, but you're not necessarily interacting with brands the way that you are maybe with each other. And so even just a few years ago, we were seeing a lot of traffic on Facebook from prospective students who were asking us questions about the programs they were interested in. But that traffic has really, really dropped off. I would say even in the last 2 years. I don't know why I'm asking Jacob. Yeah. Catherine's in the back. She knows. Twitter, I would say, is where we see the widest range in our audience. Prospective students, current students, alumni, fans, not fans. We hear from everybody, for sure, on Twitter. Instagram is one of our newer platforms. We've been there for a little over a year. I guess about a year and a half now. A lot of traffic there from prospective students, current students, and alumni. And it's just a great place to, show off sort of the slice of life on campus, what's it like to be here, and a great place to see what our students love about our campus. when they tag us in their photos or they're using hashtags. It's a great place for that interaction. Pinterest is our newest platform, and again, a great place to share that slice of life of campus, and even ways that you can kind of bring a little piece of campus home with you. The ball shop is on Pinterest now as well, and it's great to kind of show off, not just what you can buy, but, great ways of sort of that DIY, kind of what everybody else is sharing on Pinterest. And YouTube, we really use YouTube more as a place for hosting videos and sharing them on some of these other platforms. But we have a fantastic video shop in our office. They do great work. But you can tell when I say we use it more for hosting, if you look at the difference in our subscribers versus our views, we are not necessarily engaging with the subscribers, which is why I think you see that difference there. And this is who we are. Catherine Saxon and Cassandra Sproles are some awesome social media team members. They're there in the back, and they'll be mad at me for that later. But I would say the three of us really do the heavy lifting. If you guys are tweeting at us or asking us questions on our Facebook page, we're the ones that you're going to hear from. But we also, we couldn't do what we do without the rest of the folks in the communications and marketing office. We have some really awesome graphic designers and, as I mentioned, our video team and our web folks for sure, who do that awesome groundhog graphic that you just saw. We rely on them for so much of what we do. But then also the campus community, communicators across campus, but also the folks who just work so hard doing their jobs. Jacob, if you go to the next slide. We use what we call a wheel and spoke model to kind of manage our everyday activities, whereas it's got me in the middle, and I'm not sure about that. But I'm responsible for all the content. If something goes wrong, we had a little blip today, I'm responsible for everything, but we rely on everybody on campus to help us get our information out there. We meet at the beginning of the semester to kind of look at what's on the calendar for the semester. So that could be, of course, commencement is going to happen, what events are coming up, to make a plan. But there's also, questions that come up every day. So it's great to have our content calendar. We have to manage the daily grind of it all. And that's where this whole team, and when I talk about our team, that's the core team, as I mentioned, Catherine and Cassandra, the team within our office, but I also include our audiences in that because we really want to know what our audience is talking about, and that really informs the rest of what we're going to talk about. And the other folks on campus, as I mentioned, if someone's got a question about, when their fees are due for any particular something on campus, registration fees, sorry, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm nervous. If we need to go to One Stop and ask the folks in One Stop, because we don't have the answer to everything, or when are they going to turn the AC on in the dorms? That's a question we're getting a lot right now. We go to the facility services folks. So that's part of this whole wheel and spoke model that we're using, because as much as we'd like to have all the information, we just don't. So we rely on everybody to keep our wheel turning, if that makes sense. So it takes, a lot of gathering that information and kind of funneling it all through. And when you're having, we've got several people kind of managing the day-to-day, it's important for us to make sure that we're maintaining our voice through all of that. When we've got multiple people posting on our accounts, we really go back to this, as Jacob was talking about earlier. We've got kind of our defined lingo, words that we like to use. So we're always reminding ourselves, where are we? What does it feel like to be on our campus? What does it mean to be a volunteer? Sometimes it's just taking a walk across campus and getting that feel of how awesome it is to be here. We all truly believe that. So all of this informs the way that we take our photos, even the typography that goes into our videos, and even the reason that we made the video. We've done some videos this last week or so to wish the Lady Vols some luck during the tournament. And that's all part of our volunteer community that we have on campus, and that's so important to us to be a community. And that's all part of maintaining our voice. It's, being a place where people lean on each other. All of that goes into why we do what we do. And social media really gives you such an opportunity to create delight one person at a time. And that's my favorite part of my job. So I've got this here. Okay. When I talk about creating delight one person at a time, that can be as easy as retweeting somebody who just got accepted to UT, or even responding to them of, congratulations, we can't wait for you to be here. We really mean it every time. And I know sometimes people get tired of seeing that we're replying to everybody, but it's so important to us to create a welcoming environment to everybody. But we try to be creative as we're trying to create delight. And we've got a couple of examples of some of our engagements. And when I talk about engagements, of course, I mean, in the social media sense. So, and we've got just kind of a few screen grabs here of some of these. This was a person who heard, this wasn't even, it seems like a Christmassy tweet, but it's not a Christmassy tweet. The classroom next to this person was singing Rocky Top just out of the blue, and we told them the best way to spread Big Orange Cheer was singing Rocky Top for all to hear. But seriously, you should sing with them. And this was great because the person replied, but what's more delightful than Rocky Top and Buddy the Elf? This is one of my favorite tweets because this was a great opportunity for us to share our personality, to be a little bit silly. But this was a person who reached out to us, which was great. And it gave us a chance to be a little bit cheeky and have some fun with them. It wasn't a tweet that was necessarily shared very broadly, but it was a great way for the university to have a positive interaction with this person. This one was actually really recent. This person was talking about Quidditch and the size of Quidditch World Cup Stadium, and another chance for us to remember, again, where we are. Where we are is in UT, but also our place within the SEC, and tie Quidditch and the Harry Potter universe, which is obviously something that this person enjoys, and create another positive interaction. This was a tweet that was widely shared, so it's also important for us to create shareable content, which this was. So we were pleased with that, and again, an opportunity for us to show off some personality. This was another fun one where, this person was a person who tweeted us, Instagrammed and included us in it, and we just told her that we were happy to have her here, and she was having a fangirl moment as she hashtagged. So, these are not things that take a lot of effort, but it's so important to us to have these positive moments with our community and tell them how glad we are that they're here. And of course, this is one of my favorites, National Puppy Day. How could we not talk about Smokey, because he's awesome. And again, great shareable content. It's important to us to try to tie the university to whatever the current conversation is, especially when it's beyond the campus. So, not everything is delightful. We have, as was mentioned in the introduction, weather is not delightful all the time here. We have a lot of interactions that start off as not delightful or just downright negative. Parking is not delightful on our campus. We all know that. So we try really hard to answer just about every tweet that we can. This was a person who saw, this is actually the parking lot near Church Street United Methodist, which the city owns but the campus leases. And this person took the picture of the very empty parking lot. Parking was blocked that day. People weren't allowed in, and she wanted to know why. And so I called parking, and I asked about it. And it turned out that the lot was actually being used for the Medal of Honor convention that day. So I let her know that that's what was going on. It doesn't help her find a parking spot at all, but she was appreciative that we made the effort to find out. So that's sort of that customer service angle, which I think is really important for a university of our size, for that one-on-one customer service. It's a good representation of the brand to say that, again, we care. I can't help her park her car, but I can tell her why she can't park here. The best I could do in that situation. And she thanked us for it. This was a situation that we actually learned a lot from. For Valentine's Day this year, about a month ahead of time, we asked our audience on Facebook and Twitter to share stories about how they either got engaged or married on campus. And we got a bunch of responses. We shared every story that we had permission to share. And as this gentleman points out, it was a bunch of straight white people. And it was not, as he says, it was not reflective of his time at UT, and I'm glad that that was not his experience here. And we told him we would love to hear more stories. We didn't hear any more stories. But what this highlighted for us was that next time we do something like this, there's more we can do to get a better variety of stories. We can work with our alumni office to get our requests spread out more. We can work with Multicultural Student Life and with some of the different alumni chapters around the country to get more stories and to better represent what it's like to be here. Because it's not all straight white people here. We have a better, more diverse community than that. So we really learned a lot from this. And then there are other times where some people are just being critical for the fun of being critical. And again, we have the opportunity to respond in a way that reflects our community and the joy of our, maybe joy is not the right word, but for the 9/11 Remembrance Day, and I can't remember this year if we planted the American flags on Circle Park or on the Hill, but we shared that this was happening. And somebody, using less than polite language, asked who was going to pick up all the flags at the end of the day. And we let him know that, of course, volunteers were going to do that. Because that's what volunteers do. And our students and our faculty and staff are going to be more than happy to pick up the American flags that were planted in honor of the victims of 9/11. He did not respond to us because there's no response to that. But we were proud of the way that we handled this because he was just being a little salty.
I think one important thing that this highlights, and one thing I've suggested but didn't go into detail about is establishing the lingo and the messaging and the color palettes and all those kind of brand identity elements that seem like minutia, and they are in a day-to-day basis. They also provide the grounding for being able to be nimble like this. So when you know who you are, when you know what that language is, when you know what your audiences listen to, when you know what you're about, when you know what they're looking for from you, it makes this kind of response happen more organically than having to figure all that stuff out every time before you respond to somebody. So again, it's that kind of shared understanding of who we are and why we do what we do that enables that kind of nimbleness and response. And what I think is probably one of the best 3-word tweets that you could have in a situation like this.
I'm honestly surprised this is the only time we've said that. And then there are always going to be interactions that are downright undelightful. And we probably could have spent an entire presentation talking about that. But for your sake, we didn't. So, and only 2 of these are about the weather. So obviously this year has been really bad for the weather. And I can't tell you how many of these we get. But just so you know, we see all of the tweets about the weather, every single one. And, you know, with something like this, it's there's no way for us to really respond to it. I certainly understand the frustration of seeing the schools around us close, whether it's the county schools here or the colleges that are nearby. But we can't be sarcastic when it comes to weather or student safety. We can't be clever or funny because student safety isn't funny. It's certainly not funny to us. So all we can do is look at it and shake our heads. Yeah.
Yeah, we had many conversations over that 2-week period of time about maintaining our voice in moments like these, and what can we say that lets people, our students, know. I mean, we were getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tweets.
We vary between 3,000 and 3,500 tweets a day.
During the peaks
That's
of those
not
tweets.
Including the retweets and the quotes, and that's individual original tweets.
And so we had a lot of conversations, and there was consternation to say, we're losing, it's just, there's an avalanche of it, but we can't respond. When we do respond, we say things that sound very canned and administrative, quite frankly, because we are the university's Office of Communications and Marketing, and sometimes we say things that are canned and administrative because the university is saying things that they have to say. And we had conscious conversations about, you know what, now's not the time to maintain that voice. Now's the time to respond to legitimate questions and to let this kind of thing just happen, because anything we can say, we're either going to go backwards and cause it to be even worse, or we're going to say something like Rebecca said that's out of favor to the tone of the whole situation. So yes, there was a lot of conversation about our voice during these moments this year, at least.
Yeah, and to go to the next one, yeah, this I think what the previous tweet and this tweet have in common is we realize that not every tweet that's sent in our direction is necessarily looking for a response. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's hard for us to know the difference. One of the things that stands out to me with this, and obviously his first tweet is at the bottom, and I don't know if you guys can see, but his original tweet where he's thanking us, and I'd like to point out that the Chancellor is not on Twitter. That's a parody account. His tweet of the car accident was shared 185 times and favorited over 200 times. And his tweet where he says, "That's not my car," was retweeted once. So, and for us, it's when I saw the car rammed into the pole, my initial thought was, where did this happen? What do we need to do if the student was in an accident on campus? Do I need to call facilities, or what can we do for him?
Well, we talked to the police. You talked to the police right around there, and at that point, no accidents had been reported.
Because people
campus.
tweet us about accidents on campus all the time, and my first call is to the police to find out if something was reported, and what can we do? Because there is a process that you go through if you are in an accident on campus to make sure that it's reported properly. And then, oh, it's not my car, wanted us to feel bad. I did feel bad. And I felt even worse that he's, lying about it, or not lying about it, joking about it, I should say. But it goes to, wanting to verify what people are saying. And I don't believe that he's looking for a response from us, but that this is something that would be nearly impossible for us to respond to without coming across as glib or as somehow authoritarian in a way that, we're, I don't know. It's, but these 3,000 in a day. But we want to take these things seriously, but it's hard to sort through the things that we can't or are unable to answer to find the tweets that do need to be answered, such as, on the days that we close or are delayed, what is open, or, how can I get to the student health center, those things that do need to be answered. So those days are hard, but they're such important days for us to be on our A game and make sure that we're serving the campus to the best of our ability. This is a very recent tweet from last week. This tweet we saw on Thursday afternoon, and I saw it, and of course, following the news on Thursday, we knew that the NCAA had called. It was their second meeting, and I saw the tweet, and my first response was, well, yes, we have a coach. Oh, wait a minute. And we got together with our leadership and said, how do we answer this tweet? I knew that our coach was still employed by the university, but I would hate to, and had no inkling of what was to come next. We just knew that there was a process in place, not a process in place, but knew that there were discussions happening. And I would hate to tweet out, yes, we have a coach, and then a few hours later not have a coach, or a couple of days later not have a coach. So I went to the director of media relations and said, I don't know what to do. And then we went to the vice chancellor of communications, and she said, there's nothing you can do. Conversations are happening, but there had been no decision made at that point. We just had to wait. And I didn't want to respond, again, with anything that seemed shallow or glib. The university's coach is Donnie Tyndall, and then linked to utsports.com, because that was inauthentic. And we knew what this person was asking. So the only thing we could do in that situation was not answer. And I can't stand to not answer someone who's asking us a question. It bugs me to my core, but that's all we could do in this case. The next one, I had no problem not answering this one. Because, again, I think this is a situation where they're not really looking for a response from us. But this is one of those just moments where we got a lot of that over the weekend. And, of course, today we're seeing a lot of traffic, both good and bad, about the new coach who's going to be announced this afternoon. So
I find it interesting if you compare this tweet with the who's going to pick all the flags up tweet. The tone is more or less the same between the two. But making that judgment call about what you can say or when you can answer or how you project yourself to one versus another it really is a case-by-case judgment call each time. And we have those conversations, and Rebecca asks multiple people who can have answers to multiple things, and sometimes it just comes down to nothing. But sometimes it comes down to something that helps, not only answers the question, but propels ourselves forward and our personalities forward, like the volunteers tweet.
I'm very lucky that a lot of people on campus still answer my phone calls. I bug a lot of people.
All right, so we shouldn't have ended on the undelightful now that I think about that, but that's where we are.
We're not done.
Yeah, well, this is true. This seems to be wrapping up, though. So.
We're close, don't worry.
So where we're headed. All right, so we're a little more than 3 years into the branding campaign. And what we've been working on and we've worked harder on is really the first ever marketing communication plan for the university. Can you hear me?
Do you want to?
Marketing and communication plan for the university. This was made possible, quite frankly, because of the work that our office had done and the progress that the campus had seen because of the branding campaign. There is a lot more orange on this campus, a lot more proper use of our terminology, a lot more proper use of the logo, even the new logo now than there was 3.5 years ago. In large part to the effort from our team and communicators across campus with the branding campaign, that made possible a larger marketing communication effort, because once we had that kind of branding piece set, we could then talk about, okay, what are the strategies to really propel this forward? And I think it's pretty telling to bring it back that, the plan that we're working with has 6 strategies, 26 tactics. Within those 26 tactics, 11 are identified as high priority. Within those 11 high priority tactics, 8 of them have social media components. So you're looking at, of our 11 high priority marketing tactics for the university, 8 of them have, somewhere close to 80% have social media as a component of them. I think that's pretty telling of where we are in the investment that's made into social media as part of our communications landscape, which kind of blends real naturally into social media alignment. So I mentioned internal brand alignment and the work we do across campus working with communicators and our audiences. As we see now an investment in our office in social media, the position that Rebecca's in is new as of October. We now have a full-time social media manager position. We see our alumni association with a real commitment to social media. We see some of our colleges and even departments with a real commitment to social media in their communication efforts. It is that important. As we see this expansion, if you will, we want to be sure that we're continuing to align, as we're aligning with the brand identity elements, with those social media elements as well. And I know Rebecca has the contacts and is working with folks around campus, but also how can we better kind of align those social media channels, be sure we're saying the same things and helping one another out across that landscape. And then I'll let Rebecca talk about monitoring.
Is this in the right place? All right. So we have a monitoring system for our social media, but we are really looking at how to better monitor, especially for the ROI piece. And I think what's different for a university when you're looking at your monitoring for engagement and looking at your ROI is, we're not your traditional kind of retail brand. We're not Nike. We're not Dillard's, to use your example from earlier. We're not selling a product. We're not trying to get you to go online and buy a pair of tennis shoes. I really think of us more as a lifestyle brand. What we're trying to get you to buy into is to be a part of our family. We want you to come spend 4 years, maybe 4.5, Maybe I'll go to grad school. We want you to look at the content that we're sharing. If we're sharing on Instagram photos from our students of, the new pedestrian bridge or what a beautiful day it is and the sky is super blue over Neyland Stadium, we want someone to see that and really be able to picture themselves here. We want someone to feel the sense of community that we have. So that's what I'm thinking of when I say a lifestyle brand. We want to, when we're working with the Alumni Association, it's that family piece of it. So that's a ROI that's harder to measure. You're not buying a purse. So we're looking at with our monitoring is how do we show that we've had an impact on the conversation about the University of Tennessee. And I know that some of the social media and PR students who are here have kind of heard us talk about that. That's a harder conversation to measure. It's not, look how our sales have changed. It's look at how the conversation has changed, especially when we have such a large athletic program with such a huge national presence. All of those conversations are going to be tied in together. So it's the measurement piece of that is really difficult. And we're talking with different social media monitoring companies about how best to measure it. And of course, they're used to working with universities, but we want someone who can, take care of us. We want to be special. So that's a big thing for us right now. And how can we really clue into that the best way possible? Then, as I mentioned earlier, exploration of new platforms. There's always something new. I know Meerkat was brought up earlier in the session today that was more athletics focused. That's something that I'm super excited about. I think that we could use Meerkat to really kind of focus on a lot of the awesome events that happen on our campus. And I think that that would be a great tool to show off our campus to prospective students. And I think alumni would be really excited about it. I'm less familiar with Periscope, but Jacob will walk by my office and I'm watching something on Meerkat and promising that I'm working. It's research. And we're also looking at Snapchat a lot. I'm really excited about the way a lot of universities are using Snapchat. I'm still kind of curious about what we can get out of Snapchat that we're not already getting out of some of the other platforms that we're on. And then Tumblr, I'm also kind of looking into how we can use it to pull together so much of the great content that we're already doing. I think a lot of people will understand that for a lot of these, it's going to be a manpower issue. We have so much great content, I think, already on our campus. You don't want to jump into something until you know you can do it to the best of your ability. And we're already doing a lot. We just need to make sure that whatever we do next, we can do it 100%. So we're going to stop and let you ask questions.
Yeah. I think I remember one of the news that I possibly looked into when a bear lost its way and came to UT.
I think that's happened twice now.
I would like to know, how did you deal with this news? I mean,
actually, I believe when that happened, UT police actually tweeted about the bear. There may have been a UT alert about it. It was really late on a Saturday. And I think the UT alert text message actually said there was a bear spotted on campus and to please, don't go looking for it. And so we retweeted UT Police's information about it. And I will say about UT alerts, we will share the information that we have. In that case, I didn't have any additional information about the bear, so I retweeted their tweet because I didn't want anyone to ask us for additional information. UTPD was the place to go in that case. In some situations with a UT alert, we communicate with UTPD a lot when there is a situation on campus or near campus. So if we've got a little bit of information that we would feel comfortable with responding to tweets if people are asking us questions in real time, we'll go ahead and create a new tweet versus retweeting theirs, because sometimes we're just more able to respond in real time to questions, whereas UTPD, they're not a communications outfit, they're a police department. So
there's also in that situation, thinking about the decisions that go into what we say. I mean, if you've got UTPD saying don't go near the bear, and you've got us saying, oh, there's a bear, and isn't this great, and we're so close to nature, and we're sending mixed messages because people are like, oh, a bear, where? And they're going, so again, I think being aware of what we can answer to and what we can be responsible for, so to speak, as far as answering questions or inquiries, but also being kind of respectful of, again, we are in many ways, the communications arm for the university, so being respectful of whatever kind of the situation is to ensure that we're not saying things or sending people where we shouldn't.
Thank you very much.
We're really glad you came here despite the bear.
I had a question concerning, I guess, kind of your job. But I know typically it's like an 8 to 5 plus if you give or take hours when it comes to social media work. And I know students are tweeting UT 24/7. So how do you find yourself being able to respond to a student who tweets at 10 p.m. at night that is pissed off that we're not out of school? Like, how do you handle, I guess, the work load of a UT platform?
So I try to be in the office for normal work days. I try to be here on time. I will say the first thing I do when I wake up is check all of our social media platforms, and it's the last thing I do before I go to bed. I give myself a cutoff time of around 8:30, 9 o'clock for when I actually respond to people, unless there is an emergency situation. Because we are the university, I think at some point it becomes maybe a little unprofessional for us to be tweeting at students at 9:30. If I were a student, I'd be like, UT, why are you still awake? It's there's got to be a cutoff, and I have to save myself some sanity. If it is, if we're looking at a potential weather situation and it's 10 o'clock at night and students want to know if we have to go to school tomorrow, if campus is going to be open, I just try to look at it on a case-by-case basis. I will say we share closures or delays as soon as we have it. They call me at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning with that information. I'm never sitting on it. But we fully understand the frustration of not knowing. If it's at 10 o'clock and I'm getting a ton of tweets about it, as Jacob said earlier, we don't want to come across as canned. I might reply to some of them as, so far, or as of right now, classes are happening as scheduled tomorrow. But at some point, I need to go to bed because I'm not pleasant if I don't. But my phone will go off all night. So I feel like if I can reply to some of those, at least, up until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, our other followers will see those, or I'll, reply before the Twitter handle so that other people can see it. But it's not an 8 to 5 job. It's mornings, evenings, weekends. But it's also a really awesome job. So it's totally worth it.
Hi. How has working for such a large brand and managing all of these social platforms impacted your personal brand and your personal Twitter, your personal Instagram account?
That's a really good question. If you notice, I didn't put my personal handle on the website. And that was partly because when the weather is bad, I don't want the students tweeting at me about it. It's been really cool. I've gotten to go to some really awesome conferences and connect with people, really great brands, just had some really great experiences that way. But I also don't want to get yelled at for things, if that makes sense. I try to be very careful about what I put out there. My Twitter account isn't private. My Instagram account isn't private. My Facebook account is private. In a sense, because I work not only for a large brand, but for a university, I'm not going to tweet something that's critical of another university. I'm a communications professional, so I try to be careful with what opinions I put out there. I think, we've seen where people in whether it's a social media job or another communications job, express an opinion, and whether it's 2 years later or 2 months later, that comes back to bite them. So, we're all entitled to our opinions, but everything we say and do has consequences. So, yeah, I think it's just something to be aware of.
And just a follow-up question really quick. Have you, I don't want to say regretted, but I know like when you're not in that kind of position, you can post more about your personal life, like your family, what you're doing on the weekend and stuff. Has that put a heavy strain on that?
Not really. I think like I said, my Twitter account and Instagram account aren't private, but I still tweet about what I do. I went to a concert this weekend. I took a day off a couple weeks ago to watch the beginning of the NCAA tournament. I share those things, but I also try to be conscious of what it is I'm sharing. We have a rule in our office of how we follow our branding language, but we also have a rule of kind of other language that we use on our social media accounts, and I follow this for myself. If they wouldn't say it on Golden Girls, we don't say it on our platforms, and I follow that. If Blanche wouldn't say it, I'm not going to say it, and if I wouldn't want my mom to see it, I don't use it. Of course, my mom follows me on Twitter, so that's going to be out there. So yeah, it's again, I just several of my coworkers follow me on all those platforms, so I try to be appropriate and just know that whatever you're putting out there is going to be out there. And I think that's really important for our students to know as you're going to be going out there and looking at jobs or looking for jobs, realizing that prospective employers are going to be looking at the stuff that you're putting out there. So if it's not something you want them to see, lock those accounts down.
I would say, too, Rebecca's a lot less active on social media than you would think she would be given her job. But I think, too, part of that is when you do it all day long, you don't want to go home and do it, too. And so I'll speak for her and say I think that plays into some of that. I appreciate your question. I thought it was a really good one. And just I think that with that idea that, if you work all day at a pet grooming place, the last thing you want to do is go home and cut your dog's nails. Yeah, I hate cutting my dog's nails, and I'm not a groomer. Any other questions?
Well, as one of the professors here who's really benefited from you all being so open and accessible to our students, I want to say thank you while we're live streaming, so you get credit, because we have an advertising class and a PR class that are both doing research and trying to help you all extend that voice. And when I saw the spoken wheel model and you had audience, you've really lived that. You claim, that the audience is part of your model, and you've given one of those audiences, your students, access to that management model. And we as professors appreciate that. We hope that they're continuing to give you good information that will help you. But the question is, many of these students may go out and be in a position where it's assumed they know everything there is to know about social media, and they may use it in their personal life, but not in a professional sense. So do you have any tips from when you were new to this, any lessons you learned as a newbie that you could share with them so that they don't necessarily make some of those first missteps in their first social media job?
How much time do we have? No, I think, we're learning every day, and that's from making mistakes and owning them. I made a mistake today. I don't know if you guys saw. Owned it the best I could. I accidentally, it wasn't an accident. I retweeted a tweet from a fake Rick Barnes account. I didn't realize it was fake. It looked okay. There was a little questionable in the tweet, but I'm not all up on my basketball knowledge like, I'd like to be. And our followers very quickly called us out on it. Can't believe UT tweeted from a fake account. And you have to own your mistakes. If you have a typo in a tweet or a Facebook post, your followers are going to call you out on it. You can't pretend that it didn't happen. And that's especially important for us as a university, because they want to say, we're going to give you a bad education because whoever posted on your Facebook account can't spell whatever difficult word it was. So it's important to acknowledge. You can correct the mistake, but you have to acknowledge the mistake. But we're also learning every day, and how quickly new platforms are emerging and how quickly technology is changing. So you can never stop learning. You can never stop going out and seeking new information. Don't expect it to fall in your lap. But I think it's also important as you're going on job interviews to express how hungry you are for that knowledge. That, if they ask you a question about something you don't know, don't pretend that you know it, but maybe give an example of something else you didn't know and how you are eager to tackle it. There have been a lot of situations, I think, in our office where we had to learn on our feet very quickly. So, that's the best thing I can think of. Thank you guys so much for having us. We hope we didn't bore you or